Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my kitchen. I'm here to talk to you about an awesome recipe I'm going to be making for you today. If you're sitting in front of the TV and you like watching sports and you can't have those potato chips and that French onion dip or the spinach dip, whatever the stuff you like to have, but you can't now because you're on that paleo diet, or you're a current paleo eater and you'd like to try something new, let me tell you something. I have the answer for you, and it's called parsnip chips. I'm going to get started with the ingredients, and I'm going to give you a bonus recipe here to go with this. So for those of you who like dip, you don't have to go without that either. All right, let's do this. First things first, parsnips. You want to have either 2 large parsnips like this or 3 medium-sized parsnips, 4 tablespoons of olive oil, or you can use sprayable olive oil. Sprayable olive oil is easier and you're not going to have so much drenching, but I'll show you how to do that if you don't have sprayable olive oil, but I'm going to show you both methods. 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of dried marjoram, and here's my option for you. For those of you who like barbecue or like spicy hot stuff, I have here a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. So if you want to use cayenne pepper or chili pepper, or ground pepper in with these chips, you can do so. I'm going to be using this. For those of you who have paleo diets that do not allow you to have salt, I highly suggest that if you have to remove the salt, you add one of these. Okay? So that is the chips. And basically what we're going to do is going to preheat the oven at 400 degrees. If you haven't done that, go do it now. And we have our dip. We're going to start with our dip. The dip here is 3 tablespoons of coconut milk yogurt. And I love drying things. If you have a dehydrator in your house, I highly suggest if you're paleo and you buy one, because it really does wonders. I have here dehydrated onions, a teaspoon. I have a teaspoon of dehydrated garlic, and I have a teaspoon of dehydrated mixed olives and onions. So combined with the 3 of them here, I have a nice little veggie dip that I'm ready to make. I'll put a pinch of this in there too, just to add a little spice to it, and a pinch of salt just to hit it with a little bit of fragrance. But if for whatever reason you can't use salt, replace it with an herb. You could use rosemary, or you could use thyme, or you could use marjoram, whichever way you prefer. So this is the dip, this is the chip. We're going to get started doing the prep on the parsnips, and then we're going to get these in the oven and season them up, and then I'll show you how to make the dip, and we'll serve it party style in a bowl to finish the dish. So let's get started making our chips. Okay, first things first is we're going to go ahead and get these peeled. You do not want to leave the peels, and you do not want to scrub these roots like you would with carrots. You want the peels off of this, otherwise the chips won't flavor properly. Now, if you have a chipper, that is to say, if you have one of those slicers that can chip this for you, then I say you can leave the skin on, because it'll do it so thin the skin won't matter. But if you're using a knife, or if you're going to cut in the method I'm going to show you, because most people don't have that piece of equipment, then you're going to need a little more help. So the skin is not going to help you. So just peel off the skin with a peeler, and then take the front and the top off. Okay folks, what I've done is I've taken the lids off and I've skinned it. Now, here's some things you should do. First, cut it like this in half. Okay? Both of them. You'll see why in a minute. You're going to start with the larger size and going down this way, okay? Not the other way around. So you want to cut away from your finger. So you're getting a nice thin cut like this. Just like that. If it starts to bend on its own, you've cut it thin enough. If it's not bending on its own, it's not thin enough. Okay? You're going to go through each one of these until they're all sliced exactly that way. And you're going to find yourself cutting at about a 35-degree or 30-degree angle if you're doing it properly. Okay, we have our parsnip chips done now. I'm going to show you some things here. This is a perfect chip right here. These are perfect chips. This is not. Okay, so you want to make sure you have all of them relatively the same thickness, otherwise they won't cook evenly. Again, like I said, if you have a mandolin or a slicer somewhere, those are always perfect for these kind of dishes. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do the small ones now. Very, very important. The reason why you see big pieces like this is because I started with the top first. Remember I told you go from the smaller piece and move your way up instead of from the top down, because you'll end up with that. So make sure you don't do that. Now with the smaller pieces, you want to cut at a diagonal cut, because these are going to cook quicker, so you want them to have the same space of coverage. So you're going to go like this. And you see what's happening is they're becoming discs. Now you may not be able to get these as thin as the other ones, but it won't matter because they're smaller, so they're going to cook quicker. But not bad. Not bad. Alright, so do the rest of your parsnip like that and we'll move on to the next piece. Okay folks, now we have the chips nicely sliced. They're ready to go. You have two choices here. You can either take the oil like this and just pour it in, and then add the other ingredients and toss it until it's nicely covered in every way, or you can take the bowl of or you can take the bowl of chips, place it in a parchment panned paper, which I put foil underneath to stop the burning, and just throw the chips on like so, and then take your spray and spray it like that. Now, either way is fine. I find tossing them better because I like more oil on my chip, and when you spray it, you're going to get less oil. But if you're looking to keep the fat content down, then the spray is the ticket to go. Alright, so I'm going to show you now how to toss these up in the way that we're going to do them with the olive oil. And the only add-on or change to this I'm going to say is if you do use the spray, once you've sprayed all the chips on the pan, then just add the salt and marjoram and sprinkle along all of the chips until they get evenly distributed. You don't want to toss them because you won't have enough oil to do that with sprayed oil. Alright, so we're going to take the oil now. We're going to pour the oil over all the chips. Toss the chips, making sure the oil is on all of them. Okay? You can do that by moving your fingers through all the discs. Right? And then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take the marjoram, sprinkle that in there, toss it. You don't want to put all of them in at once and toss, because a lot of them will start to clump together and you don't want that. Okay? Then the next step I'm going to take is to put the salt in there. I'm going to sprinkle that along all of it like that. There we go. The salt's nice and evenly. And you can start to feel it being evenly distributed along the chips too, just by the way it feels. And then the final part here, my cayenne pepper. I'm going to distribute that too. Oh, it already smells good. Oop, runaway chips. It already smells good, folks. Alright. Okay, we're just about where we need to be now. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and pour the chips onto my pan like so. And I'm going to make sure that there's not a lot of overlapping, because the chips won't cook evenly if they're overlapping, okay? So very, very important to have as big and wide of a pan as you possibly can, and keep these chips really singular as much as possible. If you do have some overlay, don't worry about it. Once it starts to cook and everything starts browning, these will start to get smaller. But you definitely want to keep an eye on it if you've got too much, or maybe think about using a bigger pan if you can't get it spread out like this. But this really, you want to be able to see the tin foil and the parchment paper below, and then you've really been able to spread it out. Pretty good. Alright, this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven, and we'll put it in there for approximately 10 minutes or until we start seeing things getting golden brown. We'll toss it up a little, and then we'll bring it back to the camera. Okay, while we wait for our chips to get nice and golden brown, let's go ahead and make our dip. I've got my coconut yogurt here. I'm going to take my olives, my garlic, and my onions. I'm going to pour them all in there, and then mix the yogurt up. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little pinch of salt there, for those of you that can have salt, and then a little pinch of cayenne pepper. And put that in there, and that'll kind of go well with the flavor of the chip. And what I'm going to probably end up doing here when I'm finished is take some fresh rosemary and kind of trim it up and put it on the top as a garnish. And then probably put the chips all around the dip, because that'll look really cool, especially if you're having friends over for football or basketball or watching any kind of sport you enjoy. This is the ultimate way of entertaining at its best. Alright, so I'm going to put this in the cooler, let it chill for about 10 to 15 minutes, and give the vegetables time to rehydrate. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We're right back here with it, and I've pulled the dip out of the cooler, and as you can see, it's gotten very, very thick now. The vegetables are pretty much reconstituted, and you got a really good, thick vegetable, pure Palean dip here. Also, the chips are just about done, so I'm going to get this sauce plated up here in a nice little ramekin. If you got a nice ramekin like this, great. If not, you can always leave it in a bowl, or just put a piece of lettuce on a plate and put it in that. This is going to be thick enough that it'll hold up to that. So I'm going to show you just how thick it is. Look at this. That's how thick it is. So we're going to go ahead and put all of that wonderful sauce in the ramekin like so. And I am also going to put, as I told you before, a little sprig of chopped rosemary on top to add a little bit of an herbal flavor to it. So let's go do that. Alright, so I have my rosemary. I just picked a couple sprigs from my rosemary plant. I love fresh herbs. I can't tell you how important they are, especially if you love Palean food. Herbs are really half the flavor of everything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep one of these sprigs here. I'm going to just peel a couple of the leaves off. I keep one of those sprigs for just like a little bit of a garnish on the top. And then I'm going to take the rest of these leaves from the other sprig, and I'm just going to peel those back there. And if you have a pair of shears or scissors and you prefer to use those, that's fine. I'm just going to use my knife here and cut these leaves into little bits like that. And marjoram and rosemary go very well together with vegetables because you know, usually we use rosemary to go with potatoes, and parsnips are a root, so the flavor profile is going to be very similar. Just go ahead and put that in there. You could also use chives if you like, but I like a more powerful herb, so I'm going to put the rosemary in there and just let that sit in there for another 2 or 3 minutes before I get ready to plate up my dip. So now that we've got that all done, we'll go ahead and get ready to plate our chips. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. And that is a perfect example of how small and how they shrink these parsnip chips can get. I'm going to show you a couple of things to look for. This means you cut it too thin. Okay, so these are not very good. If you see a lot of this, it's because you have uneven cuts on your parsnips. Now luckily you can see most of these cuts are pretty consistent, so we don't have a lot of these kind of chips, but that's what's going to happen if you don't cut them properly. So pay attention to when you cut them, and they'll all come out looking like this. Well folks, we're about ready to plate this up, so we'll go ahead and move to the plate, and we should have our yogurt dip ready to go. Okay, I have a nice oval plate here that I'm going to serve the chips in because I'm going to serve it family style. I've got my dip all ready to go here. And as I said before, I kept my nice little sprig of rosemary. So I'm going to put that right in the middle, sit up there as if it's planted in there. And now I'm going to take all that wonderful chip that we had and I'm just going to put them around the dip. And remember, it may have looked like a lot of chips when you first made it, but it's probably going to be enough chips to feed 3, maybe 4 people at best for an appetizer like this. And you want to spread the chip out a little too. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just a wonderful, wonderful looking Paleo appetizer that you can serve sports side, table side, or family side. But I promise you this is some chip and dip that beats potato chips and sour cream any day. Bon appetit.